Let me take you through the front page of our local dailies here. I have the Star, the People Daily, the Standard, and the Daily Nation. And later on, we'll be having our discussion here just to make sense of what has been happening for the last 2 or 3 weeks in our country. Now that today there's no maandamano after a truce between the president and opposition leader Raila Odinga. Just to alert you that in studio I have my guest already, Esther Ekenyuri, who is nominated senator, already in studio. There you have her. And Robert Alai, who is member of County Assembly, Nairobi County, representing Kileleshwa Ward. We are still waiting for Wakili Biko Ashwe, who is an advocate of the High Court and a governance expert as well, to join us shortly in studio. But nonetheless, let's get the show on the road. Let me start with the front page of the Star newspaper. Ruto backs down after meeting with Raila emissaries. Ruto backs down after meeting with Raila emissaries. Head of state agrees to talks on the reconstitution of the IBC. And Azimio calls off demos, says ready to hold talks. That is what's on the front page of the Star newspaper. Still continues that president rules out shutdown of media and internet during Azimio demos. Media actually got a bigger chunk of the brunt during that kind of protest over the last 1 week. And now the president said that he will support the media in whichever way we go. I call it we go. All right. Of course, Christians mark start of Christ journey to cross the Palm Sunday yesterday, and across the country, several faithful also made it to the street to celebrate that particular day. 5 more die as highway deaths. So before Easter, it's been an upward trend after several accidents were reported over the past 1 week or so. The number of people dying in road accidents is soaring ahead of Easter activities, with over 20 killed in just 3 days. That is a sad state of affairs there. And Miranda student among the victims in crash near Keroka in Kisii County. Okay, very quickly, let me take you to the inner pages. Raila Odinga lays bare whistleblower dossier. Raila Odinga lays bare whistleblower dossier. As Raila leads the Azimio battalion into a 4th mass action, the former Prime Minister unveiled what he says are the genuine results across the 290 constituencies. Raila published Forms 34Bs, which he says original forms as captured in the IEBC service. We'll get into that later on. Okay, on to the front page of the People Daily. Time for talks. That is what's on the front page. Time for talks. President extends an olive branch to Raila, says that he's ready for talks on forming new IEBC. Azimio leader stands down protest, expresses willingness to dialogue, and move comes after appeal by religious leaders. We have got on the front page there, we have got, the president and Azimio leader who spoke, after 1 hour of the president spoke at around 5:30 thereabout, and Raila Odinga had his press at around 7 p.m. Okay, last week again there was a story about students of Mukumu Girls in Kakamega County who were taken ill after diagnosed with some cholera. Now shock as Mukumu Girls students die of cholera. And over 100 learners were hospitalized last week after they complained of abdominal pains. That is a story that we'll continue to cover for you. But so far, 2 students have died of what is suspected to be cholera at the Sacred Hearts Mukumu Girls High School in Kakamega County. And in a statement, the school principal, Frida Nodio, confirmed that 2 died at their homes in Bungoma and Kakamega counties. Of course, the statement came as Kakamega Senator Boni Khalwale led other leaders from the county in demanding action against the school administration over the disease outbreak at the institution. Our hearts goes to the students and the families affected that far. All right. Raila calls off demos after Ruto says that he's ready for IEBC talks. Azimio coalition leader demands a balanced parliamentary process to co-chaired by both sides and backed by experts. We'll get into that, the intrigues that led to the step down of the two gentlemen. The headlines already, drawn. All right, and on the front page of the Standard, intrigues that led to the big climb down. After weeks of hardened positions, President William Ruto offers olive branch to proposing a bipartisan approach through Parliament to resolve the issues. Azimio leader Raila Odinga calls of protest amid condition. I think at this particular point, let me just introduce my guests so that we can also do some warm-up and mic test. Let me start with the lady only in the panel. To start with you, Senator, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Karibu sana.
Quite a good morning. A sigh of relief. At least we are not now descending to anarchy. We have now a chance to give room to talks and get back to respecting the rule of law and constitution generally. And I'm happy actually for the step that the president took. The president has always been a statesman. He's now giving room that yes, we can listen to what you're doing, but within the constitution. You remember when the president was campaigning, he swore to defend our constitution, and that is what he actually displayed yesterday. So I also welcome the position by Right Honorable Raila Odinga, giving room to now the processes operating within the law. And I hope he won't again prematurely go to the streets, but give room to the bipartisan processes being carried out to take place. Yes.
Absolutely. Mheshimiwa Robert, at the end of the day, you were there yesterday. What really happened? It must have been a very long Sunday for the Azimio team.
No, I think, thank you so much for the invite and for having us in this show. First, I would like to convey my condolences to the student of Pumwani in Pwani University.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think we lost some more last night in an easy course crash in Gilgil. And I think the 5 who have died on the road crashes, and I would encourage our drivers to be very careful on the road. And sometimes it's because of the kind of short timelines we had during the protest. People are rushing everywhere to try to keep up with the time so that they are not locked out from wherever they operate from. So I think I was there, and what I saw, just being on the sidelines of the two major events, is that the president offered an olive branch. He extended his unclenched fist, and Raila basically said, yes, I'm ready to listen to you too. And I think that's basically what happened. People are reading too much into it. I would encourage us not to take hardline stance, and also to realize that both sides were claiming to operate within the constitution. The people protesting are guided by within the law. They are doing it within the law, and they say they had a right to it. And until the police got in and became very violent and tried to disperse us, we were tear gassed in Kawangware.
Yeah.
We even lost a police vehicle, which I think rose as a result of a tear gas canister, which was returned. It was thrown into the protesters, and it was returned back to the police by the protesters who were throwing it back to the police, and so it exploded inside the police vehicle and burnt it down all. It was sometimes very violent, seeing the police were blocking front and back, and inside that very terrifying moment when the police got into you would not know what to do in that instance, especially in the very narrow corridors. And I think that this is a very good chance for us to review what we want to take, where we want to take this country, and what we want to do with it. Still, I would urge us to pay attention that it's only 1 week. The Right Honorable former Prime Minister has clearly indicated that we have 1 week to ensure that we show interest, that are we ready to move as a country, or we are going. I'm very happy that the president has taken up the chance to, because his main of offering the olive branch was that let's reconstitute IBC, but let's do it within the law. And he believes that Parliament is a very good vehicle for that.
Yes. Okay. The president talked about, the issue of IBC, We didn't hear former Prime Minister Raila Odinga talk about the issue of high cost of living, again, which is the main reason why he's protesting, as well as other reasons. But we'll come back to that later on. Wakili Bikasho, welcome to the program.
Asante sana.
We are going through the newspapers, and this is it. Intrigues that led to big climb down. Of course, someone had to, to blink. And at this particular point, I don't need to say that who had to blink first. I mean, in 1 hour, all of them had a press conference. The president said he had suggestions, what he suggested, and Raila Odinga said, fine, let's give it a week. What do you make of this? All of them claiming that operating in between the constitution.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this show. For starters, I think we needed a situation whereby we would get a bigger person to initiate the processes that were actually undertaken yesterday in the evening. And in my very honest opinion, the very first person to have done that, in the very best interest of this country, would have been had to be the president. Remember, in his speech yesterday, he said that even our image internationally had been, tainted. And so we had to get someone to bite that bullet. That person definitely wasn't going to be Raila Odinga. That person was going to be the president himself. I liked the way he came out. Though not backed by, one would have ordinarily expected that then he would be having his whole team of cabinet secretaries and people flanking him even during the presser. But then we just saw him and and his deputy. But then if you looked at his speech and whatever proposals that he had yesterday, they were very calculated. He never promised anything major. He never gave so much. And you remember when His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga came with his rebuttal. He came in with almost six points. That was a response to the proposal that had been given to the president. Some of the responses that he gave were not even issues that had been addressed by the president in his speech, right? So the president wanted to give his proposal as lean as possible. Raila came in rebuttal to include as much as he could, because he knows for a fact that if he gets it wrong from the very onset in this negotiation that has been proposed, then it will be detrimental to him moving forward. So both camps are being very calculative in their moves, so that they don't get it wrong from the very
You'll get at some of those proposals they're talking about.
Yes.
That Raila expanded, quote unquote, his demands to that. But Mheshimiwa Senator, the president had to be the bigger person here. Of course, it was expected. But what picture did you get out of it? He only came with his deputy, and even from the dress code, his deputy appeared to, he was in the sport shoes, it was kind of a laid-back Sunday and a dress. This was a serious situation affecting the country. But appearance also matters here.
But really, do you want to address matters of national importance according to how someone is dressed? What was of key interest to me is that we cannot continue with the protests anymore, because you see, as a result of those protests, there was destruction of property, people died, the economy is actually hurting. So for me, of keen interest was that he actually cares about what Kenyans are currently going through. And looking at what the Right Honorable and Azimio team were now saying, they are open to the discussions. And I'm happy that they are saying they're open to discussions and they will allow the bipartisan parliamentary process to take place. That is, if it's issues of the court orders, I think the courts will look at that. If it's issues to do with IBC and the server that they largely mention, I'll actually even encourage them, because Azimio has not produced new evidence that the ICT systems were compromised. But if they have any, this is an opportunity for them to present to IBC, because IBC has not concluded the internal audit process of the 2022 elections. For me, my focus is the president has an agenda of moving this country forward. He's always encouraged a dialogue in a way of proceeding. That's why you've seen him in the past encouraging and even hosting very many delegations from people who didn't even support him winning this election. Because now he's president and is extending an only fund, rightly, what is done to Azimio. So for me, my worry or key point that would interest me is on whether in this 1 week Azimio is going to prematurely again run to the streets. We do not want to have this country descending to anarchy. Our neighbors, you've seen some of our neighbors who've gone to those extremes. I don't know if people have read about Idi Amin and what was happening those days. That's what we are likely to experience when we bury our heads down and do not want to reason together. But I'm happy that leaders are now getting to the reality that we can actually take this country to anarchy, and that's something we as leaders should be on the front line avoiding and defending the constitution, rightfully so. Because even when my friend Robert says the constitution allows picketers, yes, to go on the streets, but the same constitution does not allow picketers to destroy property. It does not protect them from doing that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's take a break. We come back. Article 37. Wakili, we talked about that yesterday. Everybody knows about Article 37, including, Article 37, the right to do this and that. But, we have got limits as well. Okay, let's take a break. And we come back. We are going to get into more details on what really happened yesterday and what we should expect moving forward shortly after this. Join us. All right, and welcome back. Okay, finally, let me take you on the front page of the Daily Nation. Reason at last. That's on the front page. Reason at last. And now 3 people have been killed since the protest started on March 20th. That is on the front page. Now, it's an issue of give and take. A collective sigh of relief swept through Kenya last evening after today's protests were called off following the softening of hardline stances by President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga, giving Kenyans the peace they craved in by this holy season of Ramadan and Easter. President Ruto was the first to extend an olive branch by acceding to one of Azimio's demands on the reconstitution of the future Electoral Commission, a move Odinga welcomed and agreed to call off the protests. My question is to you, Robert. It was only one condition that the president addressed. Two remained. That's opening of the servers and the cost of living. And Raila Odinga again did not speak about it. A calculated move?
No, I think what we got from the president, gleaning from the president, that the president was extending an olive branch. It didn't matter what the substance of his extension was. What was important is that for the first time, there was no ultimatums, there were no threats, there were no issues, there are no hardline stances. So what the president was just saying that, can we talk? But being the president, he wanted to look like he was not giving too much, because also realizing that he is in the presidency with others who have already taken a very hardline stance. What is interesting from this is that during the weekend, the president was off radar for a long time. Maybe he was making phone calls, maybe he was listening to advisors who were giving him better advice than he would get from Rigathi Gachagua. Maybe that's why he was not in Malava for a function of his very close aide. That's why he was not in a church service, a very passionate person on religious matters. I think the president was very categorical, was very tactical, and this is a win for Kenya. He has given us a breathing space, and what mattered was that he extended an olive branch, he extended an unclenched fist, and Baba, being Baba, said that, okay, you have said, can we talk? Because imagine if the president did what he did and we say that we are still going to go on with the protest, it was going to look like we are very unreasonable people in Azimio. It was not going to be a very good show to Kenyans. We are also, Baba is a very good statesman, and the president borrowed from the template of President Uhuru. He said that we can talk, we can still sit on the same table, we don't have to agree on everything. President Uhuru was very categorical when he had the handshake with Baba. He said that I might not agree with whatever, a lot of things with the Raila Odinga, but what I know is that he has the best interest of the country at heart, and that was the most important thing. And Baba gave his condition. He said, can we release our young people who were arrested just because they appeared in our protest? Can we also address the issue of the high cost? You know, the president, Baba addressed that, the high cost of living. He talked about it in the answers to the journalist. He also said that the opposition MPs, which I think the president needed to have addressed in the press conference, these are some of the low-hanging fruits. Let the opposition MPs be opposition MPs. Why are they going to work with government? Yeah. Why are they pretending to be now government? If you are elected in ODM, go to ODM. If you don't want to live within ODM confines, please resign and get somebody elected. Maybe UDA can take the seat if you think that UDA is very popular in that area. But please work with the party which sponsored you, because the party spent resources in the nominations. The party ensured some of these people were trained through the party structures, and when you just switch camps and now you deny the party good bargaining positions to ensure that the people, the citizens of this country get a better governance, I think is not fair. And the president, you know, Raila gave that as one of the conditions for us to ensure that we achieve within the 1 week.
Wakili, at the end of the day, this was expected. It wasn't going to go on for a very long time. The president had to climb down.
He had to, and I think context is important. If you look at the run-up to whatever happened yesterday, there are several activities that if you are a keen Kenyan, you would have realized that we were headed that direction. When the president was out of the country, he had several meetings, and even as he was having several meetings outside the country, within, as he left, the deputy president in charge of, running the country, the president equally had several other meetings with several other people, including the delegation from the US, which delegation as well met, the deputy president and Raila Odinga as well, and so it's important for us to look at it holistically. Is it something that was expected? My answer to that is a yes. Is it something that the president would have wanted that we have maandamano? And from the rumors that I had, Raila had the intention probably of having a daily maandamano moving forward. And what was his aim? His aim is to cripple government completely, to ensure that it doesn't realize whatever it is that they had promised Kenyans in their manifestos. His aim was to ensure that the capital city appears like it is on a lockdown. Yes. And you see, that is not, that is not proper. That is not good for the image of the country. And so if you put in so much pressure, it would only lead to one direction, that one person has to give in. And just like I said when I started, that person to give in was going to be the president, and he did it. So it is something that was expected.
Does it making a weaker person?
No, absolutely not. In fact, if you look at the quote that he gave yesterday, that is the president, when he says that reason is not, you do not only become reasonable when when you realize that it is time to stand up, or there was that quote that he gave. But then also when when you realize that it is also time to sit down. Right? Yes. So it doesn't make him a weaker person. It in fact makes him a stronger person. It actually makes him the bigger person here. And the fact that immediately after he gave, you realize that it took almost 1 hour between the time Raila Odinga said that he was going to give a presser to the time when he was giving it. It is because much as he realized, or much as he may have known that the president was going to give that presser, he never knew the content of whatever it is that he was going to address.
Had to get time.
So he had to get time. He had to get time to just internalize it, consult with his with his principals, so that they can come up with with a proper response to whatever it is that the president had given to the nation. So context is important, and also realizing that the president has a mandate to execute to Kenyans. And Raila Odinga, on the other hand, also has an agenda that he intends to push, and everyone is being very calculative in their in their moves, and which is actually a better thing, because if you look at the rules in ADR, that is alternative dispute resolution, which is happening right now, and more especially in negotiations, when you get to the negotiating table, you get to the negotiating table very tactically, because if you don't become tactical, if you don't become tactical about it, your opponent will definitely beat you in your very own game.
Exactly.
So, and that is what both sides are that's what both sides are playing.
Mheshimiwa, as UDA or Kenya Kwanza, are you happy with the development?
Yes, let me first, I'm very happy that young people are now not going to be used on the streets. Look at this. Most of the people are spearheading maandamano. Someone like Honorable Kalonzo was first elected in 1986. I was not even born. My mother was still in school. Raila Odinga was first elected in 92. I was being born then. Martha Karua was advocated as an advocate of the High Court in 1982. My mother was in school. These are people who have secured the future of their children already. It's in public domain.
Yeah.
And then the same people want to involve young people in maandamano. So for me, calling off, I'm happy with the development, because then we are going to engage in a very constructive business around in this country that will give this government a chance to implement what they wanted to do for the people of Kenya. You cannot want to burn your country into ashes, then want to govern over ashes. It's not realistic.
Yeah.
The issue about opening of servers is a discussion we shouldn't even entertain as leaders. Maybe the advocate of the High Court can advise if we have a part in the Constitution that allows us to scrutinize after the Supreme Court has already made their verdict. And if you remember, IBC, Azimio were given an opportunity when they requested for an ICT scrutiny, which was granted by the Supreme Court. And then there was no dispute over that. So calling for opening of servers at this point is a backdoor attempt to revisit the decision of the Supreme Court, which as leaders we should not entertain, because then we will not be respecting our Constitution.
Yeah.
Because clearly we say after the Supreme Court, which is the highest court of the land, has ruled on a certain issue, why would we go ahead and challenge it, that we are opening the servers, this and this. So what the president actually did was right, and I do not want to read much politics into it, because the president now is not politicking. He's out here to implement his manifesto. One of the key highlights of his manifesto was defending the Constitution of Kenya, which he's doing. Presidency is a symbol of national unity. When he's actually extending this, we've seen him being attacked from all angles, that you are buying the opposition. Even we have had members of Azimio claim that the president should stop buying more members. How is the president buying members? And these are people who have already seen the president has a plan. They want to work with him in ensuring Kenyans are moving forward. And for the ones who are in opposition, really, is it the business of government to organize opposition?
Okay.
They need to serve their role and give those highlights without complaining about government interfering. It's not our business to organize.
We've had how Kenya Kwanza MPs have been speaking, including Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah over the weekend in Malava, I think was at a function. He was so direct and hard-hitting to Honorable Raila Odinga. You know, we can get the clip. It's in public domain. But then, do you think the president, you know, just scattered everything because it was on Saturday that happened, and then on Sunday evening there was a truce?
You know, like I've said, presidency is a symbol of national unity. For politics of the day, of course, politics will always happen. And from what the majority leader was saying, you know, we have to caution people who want to make this country descend to anarchy, because this is what they thrive on. And I've warned you about what you're likely to face when this country goes to anarchy. I do not know if people think about what we are seeing in other countries. You saw what was in Liberia. If someone can actually be shot when you're watching, really, is that the direction we want to go to? It's actually time we pull back the mask, if I quote Miguna's book, and show the real character of most of these members in Azimio. You cannot, one hand cannot be pushing for this, and one hand is doing something different. So in as much as, yes, our colleagues have been very strong, issuing strong stances in their statements, they're actually cautioning people from wanting to force this country to descend to anarchy, which is a very bad experiment. In fact, the issue of the handshake they keep talking about, we are not, personally I do not subscribe to that one, because it is in the regime of the handshake that we saw even the KEMSA scandals, money that was looted in the name of subsidies. Before we even, when we had those subsidies during that electioneering period, we were buying unga at 250 with subsidies. Now with no subsidies, we are buying at 193 shillings. So the issue of a handshake, if it's talking about issues that are generally concerning people, fine. But the issue of a handshake is a very bad leadership experiment we ever saw in this country. And I do not think we want to go there. That's why when you listened to the president keenly, he was very keen on even the proposals he was giving. Let these proposals be within the constitutions, be within the constitution. No two people sitting and making decisions on behalf of 50 million Kenyans.
Okay. Why not?
I think
two people sitting and making decisions.
No. I think
why not?
I think
mean, these are the two big contenders in the last election.
Yes, I think we are trivializing this debate. When we want to bring in the issues of handshakes and so on and so forth, I think we are trivializing the debate, because we've had both sides of the divide. You know, I would want to trust that the issue of the handshake is an issue that the Kenya Kwanza diehards are pushing or are shoving down the throats of the Azimio team. I've listened to this debate for quite some time. The Azimio team is very categorical about the issue of the handshake, and they're saying that they're not doing this for the handshake. The Kenya Kwanza team,
but a lie here.
Yes, the Kenya Kwanza team, on the other hand, is vehemently pushing that agenda.
So you think they need it?
No, they don't need it.
Okay.
They don't need it. And the reason why I'm saying that is very simple. If you look at the issues that have been brought on the table by the Azimio team, which issues I've had the opportunity to interact with, at the center of everything is they are questioning the legitimacy of the current dispensation. That is one. Two, they want us to have this discussion on the issues of the electoral body. And if you look at the history of the electoral body from the time of 1992, 1997, where we have the electoral Commission of Kenya, and then we had, I think, the IIEC, and then they had Kivuitu, and then we had the Isaac Hassan, and so on and so forth. If you look at the changes that happened over the years, there are changes that were done extra-constitutional. There were extra-constitutional changes that were made. There were changes that were done outside whatever it is that the constitution had provided. And the route that we are taking insofar as the changes in the IEBC is concerned, as we are talking right now, are not changes that will be achieved if we are going to adhere to the letter and spirit of the Constitution. We are going to go over and above what the Constitution provides to ensure that we then can accommodate the proposals that have been provided for by the proposal that are being agitated by the Azimio team or by the Azimio side. If we were to follow the letter and the spirit of the Constitution, some of the proposals that are being propagated by Azimio cannot be achieved. So and that is why the president was very categorical in his statement, and he was saying that let us have a parliamentary a parliamentary guided process, and then Honorable Raila comes in and says that even as we go that direction, we want that panel to be co-chaired. We want an inclusion of, we want to have a say in whatever that process.
Will this cure the kind of ills that we've had, from the Kivuito-led team? We have Isaac Hassan, who's actually written a book. You can also take that book here. He said that while Sergeant Dramat Bombers, he's just documented what happens at the election body.
Right.
But will it actually cure what we face as a nation from the Electoral Commission as an electoral agent?
It's been a journey.
It's been a journey.
It's been a journey. We have been curing, it's like we've been giving this medicine in small doses.
Okay.
But then even if you look at at what is happening even regionally, you'd realize that Kenya is in a better place. You remember we had elections in Kenya, and almost immediately we had elections in Nigeria. And whatever happened in Nigeria, people are saying, but Kenya looks like we are saints. And it is because of the gains that we have achieved over the years, because of this agitation that we've had as a country after every election.
Okay.
So we are making it better even as we proceed forward.
Hold on to that.
Yes.
Robert, what are some of the demands that Azimio is flouting, specifically that made Raila Odinga said, okay, fine, we can have this talk, but after 1 week, if we don't see any white smoke, then back to the streets?
I think the various demands were clearly laid out by our leader, Raila Odinga, and he said that, first, some of them increased because of the protest, like the issue of the release of the young boys who were arrested because of the participating in the process, and charges trumped out on them, and them being placed on the scene, not because there's any evidence, but because the police just look for somebody to hold to account because of the distractions and the lootings, which some of them we believe were instigated by the state actors. The other thing I think is the issue of the opposition MPs, like we said, and that is very critical to us. The Cherera 4, they have to be reinstated. Then this process takes over, that if they have to be removed, they have to be removed in a process which is bipartisan. And some of these things, my worry is that people like the senator here are taking very hardline positions, and these hardline positions, every time you see leaders take hardline positions, the country loses. And when the country loses, they also at some point, the people who have taken the hardline positions, they become irrelevant.
Yes.
So the best thing, you see how it looks. If you have the best tools, you can check even the conversations online on how the deputy president of the country, who is part of the presidency, looks when, even on the day of that, clear truce between the president and his opposer, the deputy president was taking very hardline, extreme positions. The leader of the majority in the parliament and the Senate taking very extreme positions. But what are some
of the A and B's of this bipartisan approach, the reconstitution of the electoral commissioners, the demands by Azimio?
No, like you said, that, first reinstate the Cherera 4. Reinstate them, because they were not removed in a very, fair process.
Okay.
Then, if you want to remove them, please go through the law and make it bipartisan. Because why Kenya is peaceful is because people have a hope that after every 5 years, we are going to have an election. And I believe that if Kenya Kwanza if the president didn't move with speed to try to reconstitute IBC the way he did, we would have not gone to the streets. we went to the street because first the president was not giving us hope that in 2027, if you want and campaign to have an MCA, MP, senator, governor, and president, you will have a fair process. Because he was like going to control the whole team of IBC commissioners. And this was very critical in that. And I'm very happy that it's one thing which he mentioned, which he mentioned in that communique from State House.
Yeah. Okay, all right, Mheshimiwa, Biko, you asked that question of the opening of the servers. Can a court actually order? Does court have powers over IBC to either say do not open or open the servers, or and IBC is an independent body, and therefore do courts have those powers over IBC? That one you'll answer. But Mheshimiwa, you're accused of Kenya Kwanza taking hard stands. Even this is happening at this particular point. Kenya Kwanza is completely opposed to the handshake. The president said yesterday that yes, he is not ready for that handshake that was there, all right, in the last regime. If perhaps there would be another form of handshake, then let it be another handshake that is not going to have, you are not able to differentiate where there is a government and opposition, but a handshake to bring peace, not with officers and sirens, according to some people, some quarters. Is that what you want? A handshake, yes, for peace of this nation, but not.
We can have hundreds of handshakes. We can have so many of them. It's not a new phenomenon in this country. But what I would want, currently what we are seeing is a deliberate move to stall the Constitution. What I would actually be interested in seeing is the operationalization of the judicial fund, the financial independence of the police, the functional independence of Chapter 15 institutions, so that even when we are coming to Parliament, people keep saying, oh, now we have tyranny of numbers, so actually nothing even from the opposition side can be listened to. I would want, even in Parliament, the majority pushes their side, and the opposition does their checks and balances, so that we have a balanced way of existing. Why most of us are against the handshake popularly we saw in the past regime is because that arrangement culminated to so many other things. I had initially said we had the KEMSA scandal, which up to date people have never been arrested over the same. We had the 26 mini 15 billion theft. We had the 8 billion per month maize subsidy fraud that happened. And we have even had confessions. You heard what Margaret Nyakango was saying the other time to the parliamentary committee that was grilling her. Is that what you want us to go back to? Because when people go to bed together in the form of a handshake, we have no checks and balances.
Are you trying to argue that if there's the handshake, there'll be theft of
and that's what I'm saying, that was a bad leadership experiment, because then we have no one
what
who
if
is...
the leaders learn from the past? That now we're going to have...
You cannot learn from the past, because you see this handshake being pushed here. Actually, Raila Odinga lost the election. And he said he's not going to, he agrees with the decision of the Supreme Court, but he's not comfortable, you see.
Yeah.
When you respect that one, that's okay. But when you come through the back door saying you're even going to have prayers at IBC to put pressure, that is actually what makes us read that there is a push to have a handshake. And the handshake we know about in this country was a very bad leadership experiment. You cannot show us of another handshake that we do not know about. That we know about is very well known in the public domain. We saw what happened as a result of that. And those are some of the issues we are grappling with currently in this leadership.
Okay. Apart from the allegations, is somebody afraid of the handshake? Could there be somebody who is not comfortable with the handshake, that if Raila Odinga happens to have this handshake, 2 or 3 people will be victims of that? Maybe you can just answer that when you come after this break.
Okay.
Let's take a break and you come back. Who is this pushing for that handshake? Because the president can say, for the sake of the nation, I will even say what he said yesterday, which was also posted by Kithure Kindiki. He said that at this particular point, nobody is big small, nobody is right or wrong. The country first.
Yes.
Who is afraid of this handshake? Let's take a break. We'll be coming back with more after this. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. The show on air is Good Morning Kenya, right here on KBC Channel 1. We are still continuing with our discussion. We're just making sense of what really happened yesterday. You know, we had a very rough 3 weeks, and in particular, as media, we had, you know, some rough points. But that's what we call occupational hazard, just for you to get that story. All right, let me come back to you, Robert. As we are talking about the issue of, it was Meshmira, before I cut you. So the question I wanted to ask you, who is this afraid of the handshake? Are you afraid of the handshake? Let me start with you here.
Because I'm not in a clamor for one, really. Why would you ask me if I'm afraid of the handshake?
Okay, why would you be afraid of the handshake?
What I would be interested in is still the position the president gave yesterday, which is what we should be discussing. I've already on several occasions given my position on why I do not subscribe to that experiment in leadership. So for me, the president gave a position on the demands that were given by Raila Odinga. And what should be of our key concern is that this country can no longer continue with the protest we were having that saw loss of lives, destruction of property, and this consequently would lead us to anarchy. That's where I want us to focus on. But on matters of the handshake, I've already given my position. I'm neither of those principles. I have no clamor for, so I don't think I'm the right person to respond to that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, Robert, at the end of the day, we have a new constitution. But again, Wakili, you'll also get into this. Why hasn't the 2010 constitution stopped us from getting into the trenches?
No, I think that, you know, we can make all the good laws we want. It also depends on the people who are, you know, overseeing the implementations of the law. If people are not genuine, if people are not honest, you know, and if, you know, selfishness and greed takes precedence over, you know, statesmanship and patriotism, and that's why I said that instead of requiring our elected leaders to have degrees, please require them to go for NYS training for 6 months. You know, so they learn patriotism, they learn how to put the country first. Because all these processes, the senator last time here, you know, earlier on was saying that Raila, Kalonzo and Kwatakarua have been in politics way before she was born. You just saw the Speaker of the United States Congress retire almost in her 90s. You know, and you know, and that shows you, if you check on some of the very mature democracies, leaders, elected positions, they have very mature leaders in them. It doesn't mean that there's no space for the young people. There's space. But realize also that this country has been better through the process, negotiated processes. The IPPGs, you know, brought us, you know, the Rainbow Coalition government. You know, when we had the handshake between President Kibaki and Raila Odinga, when we had the handshake between Uhuru and Raila, and these processes, those periods, Kenya grew, the economy grew by leaps and bounds. The country was very stable. It means that the kind of democracy, the kind of ethnicized politics we are in now, we need a win-win for both sides. Sometimes people blame it on because of the constant presence of Raila Odinga, but you will realize when Raila is no longer in this political game at some point that he was the better statesman of all the politicians you'll ever get. If he was not selfish, this country would go to the dogs. Because even today, people are saying that he doesn't have evidence. The newspaper, the Star newspaper, has revealed clearly that he has said that he won by more than 8 million votes. You see, the new evidences are there. We have presented them. The people who don't understand and have not matured into the country's leadership well will think that he's very unreasonable. This is the most reasonable person you'll ever get. And he puts the country first. If he didn't put the country first, people would be in the street. If he didn't put the country first, his bodyguards would throw their firearms and fire the police who were trying to hurt him. If he didn't put the country first, the kind of demonstrations we witnessed last week would be more violent, because the young men who are very passionate about it, he would not tell them that peace. You saw the incident at Serena, where a supporter, one of the staffers in the president in Raila's convoy, was actually begging the police that we are trying to be peaceful. Please don't provoke us. Please don't fire tear gas at us. Please don't throw water at us. You know, even today we had plans where they wanted to pour some poisons on Raila Odinga. So, but you know, we are very happy that it has been called off.
That's a huge allegation and a grave allegation. Those are your sentiments, Robert.
Yes.
the sentiments, Robert.
And you heard him.
It may be inside the information. We don't know.
We know. You know the president.
He'll give us more information after
you heard Raila says that more than, you know, when he was addressing the press, he had counted 7, but when the day broke, we counted 10 bullet holes fired at his vehicle. You see?
Okay.
And that shows a personal. People were targeting in person. For somebody to fire the vehicle of Raila is not.
I'll get, as we come to a close, I'll get to that. Why, as a nation, we cannot have a peaceful demonstration? Let me just call it a peaceful demonstration. But Wakili, the 2010 Constitution was supposed to cure some of these things that we are witnessing today. And 13 years on, we are still going back, you know, the complete cycle. You know, tear gas, you know, people going to the streets. We cannot petition as a nation. Kenyans cannot petition peacefully and get their grievances resolved amicably without protests. Why do you think the 2010 Constitution has not stopped us going to the trenches?
The only reason why we are not in the trenches, I would want to, very honestly, and this is my opinion, say is because of the magnanimity that we have from the person that is Raila Odinga. We would have been in the trenches long time ago if he would be the kind of person to take hardline stances. The thing that the 2010 Constitution never cured is the winner takes it all principle or mentality. You know, in this country, when we have, and we've had over the years, a situation whereby our elections, just like in any other, you know, democratic society, you know, one would expect that there'll be a hotly contested election, insofar as the presidency is concerned. We experienced this in the year 2007. It wasn't any different in 2013. 2017 never, was all the same. And 2022 was a culmination of it all. There was a proposal to cure that anomaly in the 2010 Constitution during the BBI push. Remember, during the BBI, there were so many clauses that had been proposed that, but then at the center of it all was to cure this anomaly that we've had as a country, where after the election, the person who comes in second is nowhere in the in the organized leadership of the country. And that is what BBI tried to cure. It is the same thing that is, it is the same thing that we are experiencing right now.
Yes.
Someone loses an election, and there is no avenue that is provided for this person to have any political relevance until after another 5 years. Now, what happens? You know, in politics, and I'm not a politician. One day in politics is way too long. What about 5 years? What happens in these 5 years? And so, moving forward, one must put in mechanisms to ensure that they remain politically relevant.
Yes.
Moving forward, so that when it comes to 2020, when it comes to the next election cycle, they are relevant. And it is something that even the deputy president, who is now our president, did. After the 2017 elections, he immediately started campaigning thereafter. And especially after the handshake, because he knew that if he doesn't keep that momentum, come 2022, he'll be politically relevant. And that is what is happening. No, so moving forward, that is one thing that we need to cure as a country, that we need to provide a space for someone who comes in second, most especially because our elections have been highly contested, for someone who comes in second to have some political leverage, to have something that he's holding on to as we wait for the next election hearings, for the next election cycle.
Okay. Senator, there's a question here somebody is putting, and I love how Kenyans are very keen. We have got online reporters and journalists. According to President Ruto, in summary, cost of living, tunashukisha, tunashughulikia, that's okay. Number 2, IBC, please go to parliament. Number 3, Sava, elections were credible and over. Handshake, in capital, it will not happen. But we can talk within parameters of constitution.
Correct.
What do you think?
That's correct. That's what the advocate has actually even mentioned here, that the issue of opening servers from a legal stand view, that's hot air. You see? And I'm actually hoping this Raila Odinga lays bare whistleblower dossier, I hope they have presented this to IBC, because like I said, IBC is still doing their audit.
IBC is the culprit. We can't
of the 2022 election. And you can now see the demonstrations were not even about the cost of living. They were about opening the server.
There are three concerns.
But the major,
yes,
it has now narrowed down to issues of opening the server, which you've heard from a legal view, that whatever that is happening there is trying to challenge the Supreme Court decision backdoor. What the listener there is saying is a correct statement, because the president has put several measures, like on the cost of living. He's embarked also on some of the long-term issues that will address the issues of like cost of living in agriculture. Now we are having farmers receiving the subsidized fertilizer.
Yes.
And it has gone down to mashinani. Now we are not having a farmer having to come to Nairobi or whatever. It's going to the nearest point there where they are getting it. And I'm happy the rains are back. Like in Kisii, people are on with farming. In fact, I didn't see maandamano in Kisii. People are very busy with planting and several other issues. On what the president said to be done within law, that's clearly what every other leader should be wanting in this country.
When the president said that he's open to all honest talks, what do you think he meant? I mean, when now you want to, read deeper into that statement.
You see, now I cannot want to read deeper than what he has said. We can only interpret what he came out and read from State House,
yes,
which is very open in the public now. The president said, if we are going to do this within the constitution, please go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Because that is what he swore to defend.
Okay.
But wanting to read more than what is out in public domain, not unless I'm a prophet, which I'm not.
I don't know whether Robert is also a prophet, but when he said that he's open and he's had several talks with, several people, and when he said several people, he said over the past 6 or 7 months,
yes,
he's
exactly.
had, a lot of talks. That would mean international community, the faith-based organizations,
yes,
elected and appointed leaders. So it means that his office is quite busy.
Yes, yes.
That means that the president is quite aware of what's happening within, the fence of Kenya, the jurisdiction of our country. He is so much aware. But when he said that he's open to honest talks, Robert, what do you think the president meant?
I think the president was opening the server, because opening the server is not a literal. What I think the president has done, he has basically opened the server, because opening the server here is not opening the physical server or the ICT servers as we know them. The demand of opening the server is, let's audit the last election. What really happened in the transmission of results? Because we vote well, we don't have problems with the MCA, with the governors, with the MPs, because they are announced there. But when results are taken to the National Tallying Center, something happens hapo katikati, and they change. So let's audit that process. That's opening the servers we want. It is not opening, there's no single server,
yes,
which is going, because we know that as long as you left some of these IBC workers in charge of these servers, they have already messed their evidence. But let's review internally what we did at IPPG. And we came up and we say that let's include everybody, because the election, like I said, this election, these 5 years elections give Kenyans a reassurance that if I lose now, in 5 years, I can try my luck, even if I don't agree with the results. You know, and that's very important for the peace of this country. The moment you take that away, this country can degenerate into anarchy, and that's not something that we should, you know, we should play with. It can be, you know, bad, like, you know, people are saying, you know, Kenyans are everywhere. You have cases in Nairobi, cases in Murang'a, cases, you have Luos, every part of this country, you have Kikuyus, every part of this country. The country should not degenerate into a situation where people now want to fight each other because of elections. And that's what the president and the Right Honorable Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, has seen and said that let's now open for dialogue and let's listen to each other with unclenched fist. And the president, you know, having reviewed all it was very interesting to see the president in Germany, no hardline stance. The president arriving into the country, you know, trying to review. You saw the body language arriving at JKIA. And after that, I think apart from that, American Chamber of Commerce, where the extremist U.S. ambassador was, one of the big derailers of the process of reconciliation in this country. But when she was called out, you know, her country sent out a senator who I think played a better role in ensuring that people calmed and retreated from the hardline positions, and eventually I think we...
Okay,
yes.
There's another person here, Chimoto Magera, says that by saying yes, I'm ready to listen. Raila has committed himself to peace and the rule of law. If he breaks the peace, who do you think comes out of this looking bad?
Raila is the most peaceful guy. I don't think that he will ever break the peace.
And who is coming out this place looking bad?
Nobody's coming out looking bad. Nobody's coming out looking better than the other one. Yes.
Okay. Wakili, the issue of Sava, where's the position of the court and IBC? Can the court tell IBC to open the service?
No.
Quite literally.
No. Just like the good senator said. You know, there is a foregone conclusion. There are no servers that are ever going to be opened. Remember that under Article 250 of the Constitution, it provides for commissions and independent independent bodies. That is the Auditor General and the other one. They don't take instructions from anyone. They are supposed to, the Constitution ordains them to perform their functions as has been stipulated to them by the Constitution and the relevant guiding legislation. The Supreme Court had an opportunity of giving those orders as and when the petition was filed and during that hearing process. Once that was done, whatever it is that the IBC is going to do will be well within their mandate to execute without necessarily taking orders from anywhere. We cannot reopen that which we have already concluded. So we are not going that direction, and that is why I've said that Raila Amolo Odinga realizes that. He knows that quite too well, and that is why he is going with all these extra legal and extra constitutional means to ensure that then he achieves something out of it. So, and that is why he is coming in with this push of Mandamano, just to try and push the government to ensure that he gets something out of it. Let me tell you that a handshake from today moving forward is something that is inevitable. It is only, the only thing that we are supposed to be talking is what are the parameters of this handshake. But then a handshake for the sake of this country, and if you look at the demeanor of the president yesterday, it is something that is inevitable. The only thing that we are going to be asking ourselves is how do we structure that handshake?
I don't think Senator is happy hearing that.
No, and that is what is going to happen. It is a discussion that we are having today. It is a discussion that that you are going to invite us, me and Senator, some other time, let's say a year from now, and we are going true to my word. You will realize that we are going to have a handshake. The only thing that is the only thing that will be, you know, will be at variance will be how will the handshake be different from the handshake that was there between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Amolo Odinga. But then we are going to have a handshake of sorts. Whether it means a handshake in deliberating how we are going to conduct our elections moving forward, whether it is a handshake on on an overhaul of our ICT system around the the elections, and they are going to agree on something. They are going to sit down. When they sit down to have a conversation, that is a handshake by itself. So it is something that we are not going to run away from. It is only a handshake that is going to bring peace into this country. And like I've said, if we are going to follow the letter and spirit of the Constitution and the laws around the elections of this country, we are not going to achieve anything. And trust me, if there is one thing that is going to solve all these things, and you're going and you'll realize even as we move forward, it will be the issue of restructuring the way we handle our elections moving forward. It is an agitation that we have had over the years. It is something that is on the table. In fact, it is at the center of everything that is being agitated for by the opposition.
Senator?
I would want to respond a bit. The issue about servers, I think when Kenyans came out in numbers to vote for whoever they wanted as their president, they did so. And we were making use of Form 34As, which were the lowest level at the polling station. And it is assumed that those results given by Form 34A are final because they are done and declared at the presence of all the agents, beginning from the presidential agent, member of parliament, all those positions being voted for. And the whole Mandamano issue, it's a circus that will actually never end because this is a course being done by someone who's very used to rebelling. Look at this. We had a repealing of Section 2A. It happened. We need multi-party politics. It happened. Moi must go. Moi went. We need a new Katiba. We had a new constitution. Isaac Hassan must go. He went. Elections are illegitimate. They were cancelled. Repeat the elections, they boycotted, surely. This story is never ending, and it's what we are now seeing. We will not go to that same chapter again that we have experienced in the past years, and that's why the president is very clear. Even his statement, the president is not being clear now because he's president. He's always been someone who's very conversant with issues, even before he became president. He's been within this terrain for quite some time. So when he actually comes up and reads such a statement that we should operate within our constitution, he actually knows what we are talking about. The moment you give loophole, any other person then would wake up today, and because they're not happy with the result, you know, they'll go to the streets and demand that we now want to be in government.
You know, Robert, at the end of the day, Raila said that at the end of the day, after 1 week, if nothing is done, they still go back to the street. They still call for the street.
We are still going back to the streets. We'll call for Mandamano if the reforms have not been realized. 1 week is too short. Yeah, 1 week is too short. But it's, you know, some of the things, most of the things, these things are very obvious. They are very simple to do. You know, my biggest gripe with the president's statement yesterday was that he was just not able to say that I want, like he insisted before the elections, that there should be very clear lines between the oppositions and the government. Why do you have to buy these opposition MPs? Immediately after the elections, you saw the UDM over in the Nairobi County Assembly. We have had more than 4 fights because the MCAs, they want to have the majority. Because Azimia has the majority and they have the executive. So they are so worried that 4 times they have attempted to make MCAs close. Is that the dynamics inside there in the County Assembly of Nairobi is very hard for them to achieve that without a clear fight. But you see, like, even if you leave a lot the partner parties, which sometimes their leaders decide to get bought. But what do you do with the ODM MPs who just decided that they are now going to be loyal to Kenya Kwanza or UDA? While ODM sponsored them. If they want to be loyal, we don't refuse. You know, it's their choice. But please resign. Please resign. I wish the president just said yesterday that I want the opposition MPs to go back to their camps. If you are elected in ODM, go back to your camp. If you are in Jubilee, please go back to your camp. You see, so that we don't have this fight. When we are fighting, it is not us leaders who are losing. It is the Kenyan, the common man who is losing. I wish that the president did some of these things. And you know, like I was telling you before, when Raila will no longer be part of the political process in this country, Kenyans will realize the kind of, you know, gentleman and statesman we had, who some of these hardline stances is being, if it was somebody else in the position of Raila, this country would be burning. country will be in a civil war because they will be fighting for the positions which they believe they won. But they are not doing that because Raila, with the resources, with the kind of influence he has never misused it to take the country to the dogs. I can tell you we were part of the campaigns for the 2022 elections. Raila was very good, was very close to the president. If somebody else was close to the president, he'd be sitting there. But because Raila insisted that I don't want a contested process, I don't want people to lay claim to my win, please don't do anything illegal for me to assume power. And that's why he lost. Because the people he trusted and believed, you know, got bought and crossed over to the other camp, and now we have an illegal man as president.
All right. Okay.
Yes. Can I?
Okay.
Yes. Can I see?
Within 1 week, we'll decide whether we recognize. You know, we are still, it's a free country. And the good thing, let me tell you one thing. I was very happy to listen to the president yesterday, because we call him the president, but we know we have issues with his win. The president was very clear that whatever you say, whatever you do in the media, you know, as somebody who operated that space, and we faced a lot of, more than 38 cases during the President Uhuru's regime. I think it's very interesting to see the president saying that I will not go to the extent of trying to shut down the media. But
Yeah,
I think that one was a little bit...
It was a sigh of relief even to us.
It was a sigh of relief, but the personal targeting of journalists, tear-gassing their country, then closing, tear-gassing their cars and closing the door. You know, seeing the kind of injuries Okina Eric Kisinta got, it was very scary to see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody's saying that Cedric Kandi says that, and so he's not the president. I see. Okay, Robert. He's not the president. Okay. All right. Wakili, we have, just before you answer that, politicians will always have their space, but there is one person that we are forgetting, the voter, the Wanjiku. What does Wanjiku want? You know, tear gas here, politicians will have, you know, boardroom discussions, and here and there, deals will be brokered left, right, and center. But where's the space of Wanjiku?
The space of Wanjiku, I would want to start, I would want to answer that question by focusing on Article 1 of the Constitution, and especially Article 1.3 of the Constitution, that says that you know, representation of persons can either be done directly or through, you know, through elected leaders, and the elected leaders are here with me. And so there is a general presumption that whatever it is that the persons who we elected speak is actually what is the interest of the voter. We all can't can't be on the we all can't be on the negotiating table. We all can't you know, go to State House and have a conversation with, you know, with the president and so on and so forth. And so there is a general presumption that whatever it is that we, the elected leaders, the persons that we elected to all different political positions, whatever it is that they are going to, you know, that they are going to air, is actually the voice of the people. So that is what we get insofar as the voice of the people is concerned, and you realize, and that is what even the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is, you know, is leaning on when he says that we are not going to have we are going to have Monday as a holiday, and people will go to that people will go to Mandamano. You see thousands of people coming out to the streets. He is trying to legitimize his position as you know, as the leader of the people, or the leader of the people who've been elected by the voter. So that when, for instance, today we had Raila calling for Mandamano and no one shows up for that Mandamano, there is a presumption that he's not, you know, that he's not speaking the voice of the people. But then when he calls for the people and people come out in large numbers, and they, you know, and they protest on Monday and protest on Thursdays, then there is a general presumption that actually he is actually carrying the aspirations of these people, and that is why when he calls to them, or you know, when he calls upon them to come out in large numbers on Mondays and on Thursdays, they actually come out. But even more importantly, let me just try and respond. I know our time is limited.
Go ahead.
To what Senator talked about. If you look at the tone of the people around or in Kenya Kwanza, as compared to the tone of the leadership, or rather the leader of Kenya Kwanza, that is the president, they're actually at variance. It is like they're serving as the, bad cop, good cop philosophy. Where these are the people will come, the Rigiji and Kimani Ichung'wah will come up with very hard stands and, and just, throw their sentiments left, right, and center. But then now when the president comes in, he comes in as this composed person who is, who is a leader, who is out to unite the country and so on and so forth. If we go with the tone with which Kimani Ichung'wah and Rigiji and even my good friend, the senator here is approaching these negotiations, we are not going to realize anything. Absolutely nothing. You can't get to the negotiating table with threats and calling people names. It will never realize anything. You must get to the negotiating table with some level of sobriety. You get in with a listening ear. What does this person want? And it is only after doing that is when we can realize anything. Two, if you get to the negotiating table and you have cards hidden under the table, it will as well not realize anything, and especially not on the person of Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga is not the kind of person that you use the carrot and stick philosophy. You don't use that on him. You promise him this, and then with a hidden agenda. Remember, he's been in politics for quite a while. All these tricks that you may want to play on him are not they are not things that are very unique or that are very new to him. If he intends to achieve a particular purpose, and he has shown this over the years, he has a more than 90% success rate of whatever he wants to achieve.
Okay.
So what I would want to urge both sides of the divide, both government and, as the president said yesterday, our friends on the other side, is that let them get very honestly on this negotiating table with very open arms.
Yeah.
What do they want? But then if they're going to be playing, all these cat and mouse games, we are going to see Robert Alai and his team back to the streets next week.
I hope that's not going to happen. We need to come to work and enjoy our food.
I just wanted to remind Wakili that the sovereign power of the people, as per Article 1, 2 of the Constitution,
yes,
can be directly or through elected leaders.
You've taught Wakili something.
Yes, so we are doing it directly if the elected leaders are trying to be bought off the other side.
I hope, Senator, you are not also going to the negotiating table with the guns blazing.
I actually want to respond to what...
but as you do that, what do you think Wanjiku wants as we come to a close?
Wanjiku wants to go back to their normal businesses of the day. They do not want learning disrupted. They do not want their businesses burnt down. So that Kenyans are generally hardworking people. And this government is creating an enabling environment for business people to thrive, while others want to burn it down and then govern over ashes, which is a very wrong turn of events we are witnessing. So Wanjiku wants to get direct health care at the lowest level that are the counties we are actually pushing for.
Yeah.
Those are the issues people want to listen to. Young people want to know what is in place for them to have jobs. They do not want to put sufuria on their head because of maandamano. So in responding to what the advocate was talking about, that Raila Odinga comes to the street to represent the elected people. I think Kenyans made a decision in the past election. They came to the ballot and voted for William Ruto as their president. So this other issue of someone purporting to speak on behalf of elected leaders, they actually voted for their MCA, like Honorable Alai here. They voted for their member of parliament, their senator, their woman representative, and the president, who, even when those results were disputed, they went to the Supreme Court, which ruled. And you've heard there's no possibility of opening those servers. You see?
Okay.
So let's get our things right. The president has an agenda of working to fulfill his manifesto. He's already laid down several plans, one of which I told you affects farmers. They are getting subsidized fertilizer, which would interest me as a Kenyan this morning. And eventually I'm very happy that Azimio actually decided to reason and suspend maandamano, because it was generally hurting the economy in which them themselves exist. Yes.
All right. Okay. And Robert Alai, I hope we'll be back here sometimes next week to take stock of what really happened. That your ward, Kilelesha ward, was worst affected by the noise pollution from the neighboring, is it joints or hotels or restaurants?
Yes.
What have you done so far on that?
No, we have created an environment. We have moved.
It was worst affected in Nairobi.
Yeah, we moved a motion to ensure that we regulate the kind of noise you get in residential areas, but also because we realize that Nairobi is growing. Kitambo used to have shopping centers, but they're disappearing because some of the places like Kilelesha doesn't have a proper shopping center, which you can call a central shopping centers, because all this vice economy were to be centered around the shopping centers. So what we are going to create is that, you saw the action of the governor last week, we are going to create entertainment districts, areas reserved for such kind of activities. If you want nightclubs, we say that the whole of Koinange Street we reserve for nightclubs. We reserve parts of industrial area around Baricho Road, parts of Westlands. We say we reserve for entertainment joints. And the people have complained. There was a lot of noise, there was a lot of resistance, closing business down. The Kenya Kwanza hardliners really threatened us, told us how we are anti-business. But we told them that just sometimes people are used to problems. You are so used to problems, Baka, you have not known a better life outside there. If you go to those slums, you see mothers who have left the feces of their kids, the waste of their kids outside. When you ask them, they are saying, wewe unaona mtoto ameenda choo, lakini mimi naona ni mtoto ameshiba. Hiyo ni kuzoea shida. So we don't want people be used to the noise pollution.
Okay.
We are going to make them ensure, and we are going to create quiet zones so that you go to some areas near hospitals, near schools, near religious centers. We know that there's a problem in some religious centers where making noise.
And finally, the issue of insecurity in Kilelesha is one thing. I mean, people being mugged in broad daylight.
That's the whole of Nairobi. That's the whole of Nairobi. We wish that because the officers who are terrorizing us, especially the 5 officers who are terrorizing us in the demonstrations, lead the anti-mugging squad, the Alpha Mike squad. We are going to ensure that they go back to the anti-mugging and they stop going after the demonstrations.
I would be happy if they actually went to the streets because of insecurity in Kilelesha.
Again,
we are going to the street because of the stabbing of an MCA in Malava.
Yeah, that's
but generally, we actually want a media that is objectively, criticizing. I don't think anyone wants media to be cheerleaders in whatever that is happening. Yeah.
Imagine this is a government platform. This would not happen some years back. But we are happy to see it in KCB.
Sorry for another day. Because media, we've come a long way. And to my colleagues in the profession, we still pray for you. We've personally have covered demonstrations before. It's not quite something good. And we just pray that moving forward, something will be done. As to what the president said yesterday, that the freedom of media will be protected. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much. We've been speaking to Esther Ekanyuru, who is nominated Senator, Robert Alai, member of County Assembly, Nairobi County, representing Kilelesha Ward, and Wakili Biko Ashoya, who is an advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for coming to the show. And you as a viewer, you've given us your time listening to us. For those who've sent their comments on social media, asante sana. We're taking a break, but Good Morning Kenya continues after this. Good morning.